Hello, people. Um, I'm making this video about what's happening currently in Israel and Palestine, the situation currently at the moment in Gaza. Um, as you know, I've told people before that my brother studies ancient Near Eastern history for a living. He teaches in University of Tel Aviv, and well, essentially, he sort of left the country for now. He's in Lebanon currently because well, as he said, there are some right-wing Israeli mobs going around trying to harass people, especially Palestinians. A couple of my brother's friends too. So, but he did show solidarity with the strike that was happening. Um, but apart from that thing, this video is primarily not about the situation. It is about that, but I want to discuss primarily the arguments that I'm seeing floating around about the nature of the state of Palestine and sort of the erasure of the Palestinian people, almost on a basis that is like really ridiculous. But I'm seeing in a lot of the narratives, particularly far right Zionists or Zionist narratives, which make no fucking sense when you really look at the point of what's actually being said here. One of the claims that I'm seeing is this claim that's been used how many times, but it's a ridiculous claim, and frankly, it has to just die a death, just go away completely. One of the claims that I've seen is that they've said that it's the basically, God is the estate agent argument. Basically, that, well, God promised the land to the Israelites. Now, first off, there's a lot of problems with that because you're essentially saying a land is promised to you by a deity that you worship within your religion, as if other people don't have other religions that live in the region. I mean, historically, narratively, it makes no freaking sense. Um, but I don't like using the God as the estate agent argument because it's ridiculous, and frankly it's basically a fanatical religious nationalist argument. It's ridiculous. Another claim that's made, which is also ridiculous, is that, well, we were here 3,000 years ago. That sort of claim. Well, we were here 3,000 years ago, so Palestinians are native to the land. Blah 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 blah. We're just coming back. Blah 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 blah. This wonderful argument. Now, first off, this logic is ridiculous on a number of levels. Because number one, you would literally have to claim that the Greeks have right to all of the Middle East because of Alexander the Great. I mean, this is the logic that we're going to have here. I mean, if this is where we're going to go, then we might as just claim that all of all the Italians basically have control of all of Central Europe and Great Britain because of I don't know, the Romans. I mean, if this is what we're going to do, so you're telling me by this logic the Italians can go into German homes and tell German people, hey, guys, we were here like, 2000, the Roman Empire. Y'all got to bounce. I mean, this is why I always tell these far-right Israelis, I swear to God, listen, when you guys use arguments like that, you know how ridiculous you sound. The logic is just baffling to me that people are using this logic. And the reason why they're using these arguments is that they're trying to justify, from what we're seeing, the bombing of children in Gaza. That's literally what it is. They are trying to justify the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. That's all it is at the end of the day. So we got that one out of the way. So this idea that, well, we were here 3,000 years ago. I mean, it is. I already explained. This is why it's faulty logic. The third one. Um, I've seen people float around that Palestine is based on a word from the Philistines. Um, basically them using a mistranslation of words that were from thousands of years ago that had different meanings, and they're basically justifying it by basically saying like, well, Palestinians aren't really, because historically there's a theory. Brother mentioned this in his studies in academia, that in terms of his field of study, that there's an idea that the Philistines were likely Mycenaean Greeks that settled in what is Palestine slash Israel, particularly in the region near where Philistine was, which is near the area that it's very close to the Aegean Sea. So that theory is mainly likely. Now you can throw up in the air which Greeks it was. Some say Mycenaean, some say Minoan. Though we don't think it was Minoans. The best theory that is out there is that it was likely Mycenaean Greeks. And some people are spreading this bizarre argument that Palestinians are Philistines. So it buys into the narrative that the Palestinians are basically invaders, like they're not native to the land, that Palestinians are somehow invaders that came. Which again, I want people to preference this point and make it clear. In the region that is, well, to be politically correct, I tend to just use Canaan because that's a more neutral term to use it, at least in my opinion. Um, my brother says Palestine, but he says, call it Palestine. Palestine is a much more politically neutral term to use because so many other people called it Palestine. So if you were to make a one state, it makes sense to call it Palestine because so many people were living in that region. So to call it Israel is kind of odd because you're literally preferencing one ethnic group to the whole sliver of ethnic groups that lived in the region. And Palestine just feels like a more neutral term to use. At least for him, that's what he said. I use Canaan because I just think, that's what it was called. So I just basically use Canaan. But that region had so many people living there. Don't get me started on the diversity of ethnic groups living in there. You had Moabites, Jebusites. We have names of them in the Bible. Now, the Bible, you can't trust it in terms of historical information. This idea that, first off, these guys were writing. The Bible is collected in different terms. So the oldest biblical story that we know of is likely, I don't want to get into that complication, but you cannot trust the Bible in terms of giving you historical information. That's just a reality. And the fact that some people are trying to is just whatever. But especially to justify ethnic cleansing. Yeah, there are many people living in the region. You have Moabites, Jebusites, all these sort of different ethnic groups living in the region. You had Egyptians living there, because those Egyptians came through during Egyptians were going in and out of that region. You had Semitic peoples coming in and out of that region. So we have proof that, Babylonians actually, before they actually occupied that area, well, the Neo-Babylonians would come much later, but early Babylonians would come and travel there. It was a center of, it's near a port, it's near a river area. So a lot of people came through that region for trade or exchange of differences, exchange of cultures. So many different people came from that region. And when I'm talking about Babylonia, I'm talking about what is today modern day Iraq. So you had so many people living in that region. And to preference, and Hebrews and, Israelites, they lived there too. So, but the issue with this claim that these particular people have a right to it, it just seems it's a dubious claim to make, to just assert that one group of people have a better claim to that region when so many people were in that region. It's total nationalist rhetoric. It's total nationalist rhetoric. And I've seen these arguments on Twitter just flowing out there, and I understand preferences to this point. The point of these arguments is basically to erase Palestinians, basically to act like they're not supposed to be there, so thus them being ethnically cleansed is absolutely justified. Settlements are justified. The evictions from the homes are justified. Basically, when you make historical claims like we were here, you're basically exclaiming that you are reclaiming a land that was already yours. And what right-wing, far-right Israelis are doing, the Zionist project, what's absolutely baffling to me and why they're using these claims is that this is the same argument that was used by specifically Europeans who, oh fuck, sorry, give me a minute. This is the same argument that was used by Europeans to essentially claim that we got right to conquer Africa because we were here somehow. It's the same argument they actually use for India too. They would claim that, well, we are the descendants of the light-skinned invaders, i.e. the Aryans. I mean, you have to remember, the idea of the Aryan race, that originally came from the British. The British were the ones that were obsessed about portraying this idea of the Aryan race. It is absolutely, like, they're the ones that sort of invented that whole idea first. And it's almost the same argument that these far Israelis are actually using. That British colonialists, settler colonials, actually used as well. They would claim that we're in the region, already, so we're just reclaiming the land. It's so ridiculous. So this idea that one group of people have more rights to the land than other groups of people, it's just frankly just absurd. It doesn't make any point or logical sense to even make that statement. So, I personally find it absolutely ridiculous that people are still making that point. Another point that's been made, which is hilarious to me, is, well, that's a whole nother conversation, but, some people have made, like, really odd claims about, you start seeing sort of anti-Arab rhetoric sort of twisted into it as well. A good example of this is that you got people claiming, this is really crazy to me, that the Arabs will ethnically cleanse. If the Arabs take control of that area, the Jews will be ethnically cleansed, right? Or they're going to ethnically cleanse the region. And someone actually with a straight face actually claimed that the Arabs ethnically cleansed the Mesopotamians, the Persians somehow, and other groups of people, which, I mean, it's some of the most craziest claims I've ever heard, because that would literally mean that they would have to ignore, like it's interesting that, these guys literally ignore the Roman occupations. So, okay. They ignore other occupations of other ethnic groups. I mean, it is some of the most pseudo-history I've ever seen, that I'm seeing people use that argument to say that, well, they're using the whole Arab conquest equals Arab bad. They're going to ethnically cleanse people. Even though the right answer to why you have Arabic as a language and why you have, because I've seen these people use this argument. I mean, they take the Arab world. Personally, I don't like using the term. It's a loaded term. The correct term for me just would be the Middle East. But they take most of that area. And I've seen them claim this. The far-right Israelis would have this propaganda picture of Israel right there being Jewish, and then Israel being surrounded by all these Arab countries, and then claiming that, well, Palestinians, you guys claim that you have no territory, yet you have all these Arabs around you, and you're Arabs. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, really? So you guys are going to sit here and claim that Palestinians have no claim to the land and all this stuff, and you're just going to say, well, look, you guys are Arabs, so why don't you live in these other countries? It's the same bullshit with saying, well, Palestinians should go and live in Jordan. I always hear this bullshit. Always hear this bullshit. My brother says the same thing. He's like, I always hear this. It's always, why don't you guys live in Jordan? Why the fuck? Like, why? Like, it's so, it almost like, it's straight up, folks. It's straight up the whole Arabs are monolithic people. That's literally the argument. Like, every Arab thinks exactly the same. Syrians, Iraqis, Iran, they all think exactly the same. They're all the same people because they have relation to one religion. So, so they have loyalty to the religion, but not their countries of origin. I mean, this is, I mean, it is so, oh man, it is so absurd. Some of the arguments I've seen, like, especially with that one. And the whole claim that the Mesopotamians were basically ethnically cleansed, that is, especially by Arabic people, I was like, whoa, okay, that's a bold claim to make. I mean, not to claim that, pogroms didn't happen, but to make this claim, you would have to basically say that religious conversion by choice, which is likely what happened, is a form of ethnic cleansing, which is weird to say. Because by this logic, essentially the Greeks ethnically cleansed themselves because they became Christians. I mean, this is like, these guys are frailing. They're like, what I'm seeing with the far-right Israelis and the arguments they're making currently, because they're trying to justify the bombings in Gaza, it is clear that they're losing the PR battle. It's very clear. And they are throwing any ridiculous argument out of the woodwork. And the historical ones, the reason why I bring them up is because there's a lot of muddy history with the Israel-Palestine conflict. People don't understand it at all. I mean, I've seen people even claim like, well, this conflict's been around for 2,000 years. And I'm sitting there like, dude, I think you're confusing the Crusades and people having empires having interest in that region to the Palestinian and Israeli conflict today, which is a very modern conflict. Like, this thing began after the end of World War I, and you have the Balfour Declaration, or the sort of ramp up to that sort of thing. So, and it's a case of settler colonialism. So it's a modern conflict, right? It's 20th century, early 20th century modern conflict, right? It doesn't go back to 1,000 years. I've seen, like, basically milquetoast liberals make these ridiculous claims about, oh, it's been there for 2,000 years. And I'm like, no, dude, it's not. It's not. You're confusing thousands of years of occupation from the Greeks, the Romans, which that's a whole nother thing. And for when they say 1,000 years, they're basically talking about the Crusades. It's essentially, they are basically conflating the Crusades with the Palestinian, and it's ridiculous. Another claim, which I won't let that slide, is this sort of bizarre like thing from far-right Israelis where they talk about Palestine and then they sort of act like the Ottoman occupation like never happened. Like I've seen this argument before. Like, they say, well, Arab Israelis bought the land in 1800, and it's like, okay. Like, they bought the land in 1800. What, just on their own? Like, like the Ottomans didn't give them permission? I mean, it's shit like this that I'm just like, the fuck. So, these are the claims that are being made currently. And I think personally, it's, people are just frailing, trying to find arguments to justify basically what I'm seeing is just the murder of children. That's literally what it is. We're trying to justify. And I'm going to do another separate video on the Hamas thing, because that defense is really getting ridiculous at this point. Um, but I wanted to make this preference video because I'm seeing a lot of these ridiculous claims being made just sporadically, just like, oh, we're just gonna make this claim. And I know a lot of people don't understand historically what's happening in that region and what goes on there, and they have this muddied understanding about this conflict, and it's so much baked in Orientalism and other things that they don't understand what's going on. They don't understand what's going on at all. So I'll just leave it at that. And that's my video for today. So hopefully some people can understand and track these arguments and understand that, at the end of the day, these people are just making these claims to justify the current ethnic cleansing that is happening against Palestinians. And that's literally what's happening. That's why they're making these claims that certain people. That's why you keep hearing this narrative that Palestinians are native to the land, or that they're invaders. I mean, it's absurd, but they're just gonna keep making these claims. So what the fuck are you gonna do? So, you know, sorry, I thought I saw someone I knew. So at the end of the day, yeah, hope people learn something from this video, and they can spot some of these ridiculous arguments. So you have a good one, folks.